Welcome back to the Response Drivers Podcast, where we feature top marketing minds and dig into their inspiring stories. Learn how these leaders think and find big ideas to push your results and sales to the next level. Now, let's get started.
Hey, I'm Rick Rapé, host of the Response Drivers Podcast. Here I dive deep with marketing experts and innovators to learn how they approach targeted marketing and use data-driven strategies to acquire and retain customers. We'll talk about what's working, what's changing, and how we can stay ahead in an evolving marketing landscape. Response Drivers is brought to you by RPM Direct Marketing. RPM helps companies develop hard-hitting direct mail creative and utilize advanced testing and targeting methodologies to reach customers and prospects. Our goal is to fully optimize your marketing performance so you can drive more sales and exceed growth expectations. We deliver smarter, more profitable direct mail solutions so you can turn your direct mail programs into a predictable, efficient sales channel. Check out rpmdm.com to learn more. My guest today is Francine Feder. Francine's career spans diverse roles within retail, sports, entertainment, fashion, youth culture, automotive, and outdoor. She spent 20 plus years as a VP of marketing at Foot Locker, in charge of creative and content, digital media, public relations, event marketing, influencer, social media, and in-store, and helped transform and revitalize the business. For the past 2 years, she has been consulting and working as a fractional CMO, most recently at OK Four-Wheel Drive, a premier off-roading and overlanding retailer. She's won numerous awards, including a Cannes Silver Lion, Sports Clio, and an Effie. Thank you so much for joining me today, Francine.
Thank you, Rick. Nice to be here.
Can you walk us through a little bit about your career path and how you transitioned from, or how you got to Foot Locker and how you transitioned from Foot Locker to your current role as a fractional CMO?
Sure. Well, I got to Foot Locker a very long time ago. I started my marketing career. I was an intern there, and then I worked at LVMH back in the day, which was I focused on Givenchy perfume, so completely different industry. I quickly found out that that wasn't for me, and not to totally date myself, but I answered an ad. I think at that point I decided I wanted to go work at an ad agency. So I answered a want ad for, junior account executive, and interviewed at an agency called Bates, who at the time were Foot Locker's agency of record. Met with an account director there who said, you have client side experience. You shouldn't work at an agency. Like, if you can stay on the client side, stay there. My client at Foot Locker is actually looking for a junior marketing person right now. She makes a phone call, writes down a name and an address on a piece of paper, and I basically get on the subway, go to Foot Locker, interview there, and got hired like a day later, which is, again, unheard. That was the late 90s. So, I don't think that happens too much today, but
Wow, well, that's great. No, I think it might still happen. You never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Hopefully it does happen for young people. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice. But I started, low on the totem pole in marketing at Foot Locker, but I really started in what was traditional advertising, TV, print, radio, that was back, did a lot of print actually then. And I worked across our Foot Locker and our Lady Foot Locker brands for women, and then Kids Foot Locker. So really worked my way up through marketing there through various roles, eventually leading what was called an advertising department, again, much more traditional, paid media, paid advertising, a lot of television commercial production, that sort of thing. And then once I grew into the VP role, really expanded the purview. It was the beginning of social media. So nobody really knew what to do with it. I thought it was kind of fun and exciting, and it was a jump ball, and I grabbed it, and ended up, starting a Facebook page, starting a Twitter account. For us, nobody knew what that was. really just
Hmm.
kind of got it off the ground. Next thing you know, um, we were at, 1 million followers on Instagram, which was this huge milestone for us. And it turned out that folks and consumers who liked sneakers really, really liked showing them off on social media. And it was one of the first industries that really, took off in conversation, as, from a brand standpoint on social. And
Mm.
this was, probably around like 2008, 2010 timeframe. So I expanded my role to include social media, then grew into the VP role of you know, with PR as part of that and sports marketing. I managed all of our deals with, the NBA, the New York Knicks, a
Wow.
lot of things like that. And then
Hmm.
really getting more into digital marketing, which was run, separately from a separate team at Foot
Mm.
Locker. But it was one of a good lesson in, matrix organization, collaboration, and then, how we were really able to work together for a common goal as part of that until, I had digital media under my purview a little bit after that. And then worked across all of our operating divisions, Foot Locker, Lady Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, Champ Sports, and East Bay. The East Bay catalogs were, here talking about direct response. That was
Hmm.
obviously our big tool there.
Yeah.
And then, several different iterations of that VP role and in consumer and, a lot of shifts in the business, post COVID and really accelerating our digital marketing then. And, I've seen the whole pendulum, the whole brand to performance pendulum swing back and forth. And then in early 2023, it was, Foot Locker was definitely going in a different direction than I was, and it
Mm-hmm.
was time to, we parted ways, and
Hmm. Hmm.
then I'd been in the same company for 25 years. I wanted
Yeah.
to be for it was like let me take a minute. I thought I would probably just jump into another job right away, but I wasn't quite ready to do that. So I started, I kind of took a little bit of fractional work, and I ended up doing a lot of work that I'm still working with them for an agency called Athlete Driven, where,
Mm.
their specialty is sports sponsorships and how to really help companies, not only maximize the ones that they have. So if you have an NBA deal but don't really know what to do with it, I've
Hmm.
served as a strategic advisor and come in and say, hey, here's an athlete you can work with. Here's a campaign that would make most sense, with this partnership that you have.
Hmm.
And then also as well as bring new ideas and new clients to the table. So it was nice because it still afforded me time to figure out what else I wanted to do. And then I kind of took some more fractional projects on for different companies, a lot of retail work. And
Hmm.
then I ended up taking this role at OK Four Wheel Drive earlier this year, which has been amazing. They're a small, automotive, off-roading and overlanding, which, I can't say
Yeah.
we're overlanded, but I love.
You haven't, huh? Okay.
No, I love outdoors. And, my husband and I actually have classic cars. We're
Okay.
we're
Okay.
we're gearheads, but we hadn't actually,
Okay. Right. So you
done
sort of
that.
understand the automotive world a little
So I
bit if
understand
you're
the world,
classic
and
cars. Yeah. I have a
they're
Toyota. I have a Toyota Tacoma. One of my vehicles is a
oh,
Toyota Tacoma
amazing. We have
overlanding truck. Um, and I
Yeah.
love it, but
I believe we have a dealer in either Washington or Oregon, so we can hook you up.
perfect.
We'll talk to
Oh,
me
perfect. Yeah, definitely.
after.
I need more stuff for my truck. Absolutely. All the
Oh, we
extra
can we
stuff you
can
can buy.
definitely hook you up. Okay, fourwheeldrive.com and
There you go.
yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah, so it's actually a great example of, a bit they're such like smart and nice people. They have a amazing shop in Stewartsville, New Jersey, which like
Hmm.
their service is next to none, but a really growing e-commerce business that they
Yeah.
accelerated during COVID. For
Yeah.
obvious reasons. It was a lot of people took up, overlanding and off-roading. They
Hmm.
accelerated pretty quickly, and they knew they were kind of at the next stage of growth. They don't need a full-time CMO. The
Hmm.
CFO was kind of acting as a CMO, and he was
Sure.
actually the one that recruited me. He knew, they needed some help, and
Yeah.
it's been amazing, just kind of going into a smart business where people know their stuff, but they just really needed help, understanding here's a marketing theme, here's a calendar, here's consistency. This is,
Hmm.
and it was
Yeah.
simply
Well,
like,
coming from all those
modernizing.
years at Foot Locker,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've established like I guess you'd say really strong guiding principles in terms
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
what you believe in and what you know is going to work. You
Yeah.
touch so many different media channels and so many different types of campaigns in
Hmm.
your career there at Foot Locker. It sounds really like you have just an enormous amount of experience to build off of.
Yeah.
So, I was going to ask you about a little bit more about your time at Foot Locker, and
Hmm.
you oversaw so many campaigns, I think, during that time. Can you share anything about a campaign that stands out to you as
Yeah.
really
I mean,
significant?
I'm gonna go with the fun and the famous one just because it was actually very effective too. So we did this
Uh-huh.
campaign every year called the Week of Greatness. And what the Week of Greatness was, it was the week leading up to Black Friday. So when
Mm,
the rest of everyone knows retail is insanely promotional before Black Friday. So the
mm-hmm.
thought process was when everyone zigged, we zagged. So
Mm,
everyone was advertising, 50% off this, blowout sales. In the
mm-hmm.
sneaker industry, it is when, the brands like Nike, Adidas, etc., released the best of their best shoes. So, the retro Jordans, the really
Mm,
hard, the most coveted product was
mm-hmm.
released that weekend. It was what we call heat in the sneaker industry. There was just a lot of heat coming out. So we
Mm-hmm.
created an event called like this is the week of greatness. This is the greatest product from the greatest brands, like backed up. And,
Mm,
needing a way. And it also became known year after year for really having the best marketing campaign attached to it. So
mm,
the year it really broke out as an event was we decided that like the idea behind the Week of Greatness, and this was in conjunction with our creative agency, BBDO, um, had come up with this idea of like, because it's the Week of Greatness, all is right in the world. Everything is perfect. So we
mm-hmm.
went at what we liked to do was go after athletes and celebrities in really fun, almost like self-deprecating ways and like convince
Mm-hmm.
them to like say to do crazy things. So this campaign, the idea was all is right with the world. So we got Mike Tyson gave Evander Holyfield a piece of his ear back.
I think I saw that. I
Yeah,
think I saw
yeah.
that
So
ad.
that
That
was
was
that was the
great.
most famous one. And like in that same spot, we sent Dennis Rodman on a one-way flight to North Korea because that was when that whole controversy was happening. Um,
Sure.
Brett Favre, like with his retire, not retire, like he said no more pie. Like he's like, you got to know when to walk away. So it was, taking a lot of,
Yeah.
sports, mainstream sports jokes at the time. And that, obviously it's like on everything from the Today Show to CNN to Good Morning America. I mean, the PR, without hardly spent any paid media on it. And the PR alone was just bananas. And the
Yeah.
promotion was incredible. I mean, it was literally like the best sales week,
Wow.
like
Wow.
tripled over the prior year. It was, all the numbers were great. And so year after year, that really became like the standard of excellence. I think the following year we did something with like when Manny Pacquiao was like, he's going to fight me. He's going to fight me. Like, what's happening during the week of great. They're like, the greatest thing is happening. And like, we showed him, I had to go to the Philippines to film that. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there was some pretty cool things. And then we had the one where, you know, people that are challenging greatness. So we had Tom Brady making fun of Deflategate. That was also like,
Oh, I remember that one too. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
So, I mean, to
Yeah.
me, like just from, when you do the wind back to your career and some of the like the best, like those definitely stand out. But I mean, there were
Yeah.
so many little things I think that we
Mm-hmm.
did in the trenches, whether it was like just, tweaking a digital campaign or like doing
Mm-hmm.
doing some A/B testing and discovering like those like the little moments were, equally as rewarding sometimes just because I think we knew the big moments were going to be big and going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But sometimes it was sort of those little everyday things and everyday adjustments to whether it's to the marketing mix or to the strategy that I think really, felt felt pretty good as well.
Yeah. That leads into my next question perfectly, actually, because I was going to ask you about in today's data-driven marketing
Mhm.
landscape, how do you balance creativity with analytics to drive engagement or retention?
Yeah, they are
So,
they are not mutually exclusive things. And I get so like crazy when I see all the binary, all of the articles and all of the like folks talking like brand marketing and performance marketing are not binary entities. That they
right,
have to work together.
right.
Like you have to know that you always start with the data. You have
Mm-hmm.
to know who your customer is to know how to
Mm-hmm.
speak to them properly.
Mm-hmm.
So the data is going to tell you a lot. I mean, it's almost like, you wouldn't drive a car blind with a blindfold on, right?
Right.
So, to go to my automotive now, but
Yeah.
you don't drive
You
a
wouldn't
car with a
go
blind.
overlanding with a blindfold on. No, and
No,
not
you
at
want to
all.
see
Right.
you want to get a map or a GPS or whatever that electronic version of that is of what the
Sure.
road's gonna look like.
Yeah.
And the data tells you what the road's gonna look like. The data
Right.
is to tell you, or, is my consumer male? Is he 35? Is he, is
Yeah.
she, where does she fit in?
Yeah.
Where does mom, is it a teenager? Who's the purchaser? Is it mom? Is it cat? Is it them? And
Yeah.
that's where you get your intelligence and your information. And then you tailor the creativity to that audience.
Mm-hmm.
And you use the data to see, if they respond to that level of creativity. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and I
Yeah.
don't just mean like A/B testing or like, hey, I did a red ad and a blue ad, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them, does like better. But what are the insights?
Yeah.
What made sense? What drove people to purchase?
Mm-hmm.
And then you also need to understand their journey, most importantly. Like, how did they get there? And that's one of the hardest, that is harder to figure out than, you
How did
know,
they get to the point of purchase? Like
of purchase.
how did
Yeah.
they
Like, how did
arrive
they
there?
find
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So yes, are there metrics that say, okay, this purchase was made through direct search, this was made through, Meta, this was made through Google Ads. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But all of that is still like last click? Like, what's the whole, it's really
Yeah.
understanding what the journey is. I mean, if, I look at, I think the women's fashion brands actually do this really well. I
Mm-hmm.
speak to that because that's, what I get served is, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of, some of these smaller fashion brands, they see me like they'll serve me something and then I keep looking at an item and then I'm deciding and then they hit me again and they hit me again and they kind of get you a different way in a different spot and it's
Mm-hmm.
understanding who you are and then I always sometimes I just do it on purpose to see when they stop, like how, because I like to see what other people are doing. And like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how long is it going to take them to stop talking to me? Like, what's the right amount of time? Is it a week? Is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? Like,
Yeah.
if I was looking at something and I haven't bought it within a month, like I'm probably not going to buy it.
Yeah. Like if you're being
So
retargeted for something that you've looked at
yeah.
at some point. Uh-huh.
And there are some companies that hit at it for 3 months. It's, so it's
Mm-hmm.
a very, and I think learning what that sweet spot is for your target
Yeah.
consumer, who you're going after is like that's a science, but it's
Mm-hmm.
also an art because it's, hey, did I try to serve them like a different look or a different, not just a different product, but a different, was I serving them static and now I want them to see video? Like, do they need to
Mm-hmm.
experience the lifestyle more and
Yeah.
feel? Is it an occasion purchaser? And that's the whole thing. And every brand's
Do you
occasions are so different.
mm-hmm. Do you think that that relates at all to um more and more digital clutter that's hard to break through and that brands have to be more persistent over a longer period of time just to kind of get their messages through to consumers.
I think
It feels
there's,
to me like we're getting better and better at filtering out
mhm.
some of the digital messaging because there's so much of it.
Yeah. No, we are. And I think people are just so used to seeing ads and the
Hmm.
noise that you just kind of skip right through it. And I mean, even if you look at, okay, fine, even if it's not just your phone, if you're watching connected TV at home, I mean,
Hmm.
right now, every platform has pretty much got an ad-based, model,
Hmm.
revenue model. And like, yeah, we're
Yeah.
good. Like, we're cheap. We don't, we take the ads and, I mean, granted, I'm in advertising. I like watching it, but my husband he'll just sit on his phone doing something else while the ad's playing on Prime before our show comes on. So it's
Yeah.
people are very good at tuning that out.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to, and that's where the creativity comes in. That's where you have to have the right message to break through. It can't just be the same, annoying
Yeah.
ad that you
Right.
see over and over again.
Right, right. No, I know because once you've gone through that campaign, I mean, it sort of has a life cycle in advertising for sure, and you can't just
Mhm.
keep using it over and over again. We think a little bit
Exactly.
differently in the direct marketing world where we establish a control package in direct
Hmm.
mail that performs really well, and then we'll stick with that for most of our campaigns
Yeah.
and keep using it over and over again because that's the lower risk sort of proven
Yeah.
methodology that's going to win. And then we sort of also try to carve out this research and development segment, 10 to 20% of a program, sometimes more than that, depending on, what we're seeing, but where we'll do a lot of testing. So that's where we
Yeah.
can be really creative and we try to do testing for tweaking things, like you
Right.
said, like little improvements, but also like swing for the fences, try to hit some home runs with something that's
Hmm.
totally weird and different, and you can test it in small quantities. So a lot
Yeah.
of our clients really like that about direct mail. Like, yeah, we can throw out 50,000 pieces or 25,000 pieces of
Yeah.
something that's wacky and different and just see how it does. And then if it works, we roll it out. So,
Oh yeah, for
um,
sure. And then
yeah,
look, I remember when we used direct mail from time to time. It felt like we had East Bay, which was the direct marketer. It was a catalog in your home every month,
yeah, yeah,
and you're able, like, you looked and see how it, which athlete performed better on which cover, and you basically knew how your business was based
Yeah.
on orders that you received,
Yeah.
and then you could distinguish who called from the
Yeah.
catalog
Oh,
or
I
versus.
imagine the analytics and the data that you can get from a catalog
Oh
is
yeah, it
pretty
was it,
amazing.
it, it was pretty crazy. And
Yeah.
then look, East Bay was printing catalogs until like
Yeah.
2020, 2021. It was pretty
Well,
late for a catalog brand.
yeah.
You know,
Well, many companies are still printing catalogs. The
oh
catalogs
yeah. And
haven't gone away.
they work in a lot of, I think there's a place in a lot of industries. Like I always say,
Yeah.
fashion. There's something like I love getting like the Saks Fifth Avenue catalog. It's
Yeah.
glossy, it's pretty, it's on
Yeah.
brand. I think there are a lot of companies that it still makes a ton of sense for. Like it's
Yeah.
you can't, what was that say? You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater or whatever. I mean, yes, we're in a digital world, but
Yeah. We always
there's
get a stack of catalogs here for every brand that my wife has purchased, you know,
yeah,
so whatever we've purchased, um, Public Rec and Lululemon and, just
yeah.
every kind of
No, it makes
clothing
I
brand.
actually just got an interesting one of something that I was just looking at on Insta. It was someone who served me an Instagram ad. They're called Pistola, Pistola denim. I
Mm.
actually never heard of this brand, but they look a lot like Rails and some of the other like brands that I shop.
Hmm.
And they're hitting me on Instagram. I haven't like committed to buying yet just because I don't
Hmm.
know how their
Hmm.
sizing is or like what'll fit me.
Sure.
And I
You got to try
literally
it first.
I just got a 20% off coupon in the mail.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like,
Well, if
how did
you're
they find me? But
Well, if you go to a website and look at the website, we can retarget you with direct mail right
yeah.
away. We can get your address and all your contact information instantly,
Yeah, that's
uh,
mildly
and
creepy. Okay.
and send you a piece of direct mail. Those are very successful campaigns,
Yeah.
retargeting.
And so
I
now
would
I'm
say
like,
almost
oh,
all retail businesses like that are
do
selling
it.
online, they
Yeah,
should be doing it.
they
If
should.
they're retargeting on display, online and all those types of things, but they should
Hmm.
retarget offline too because it breaks through the digital clutter. It gets right
Yeah,
into someone's hands, and
it does. I mean, it definitely stood out. I noticed it. I'm
yeah.
still not sure I'm gonna
Well,
dress, but
I
it
I remember
definitely
all
stuck
those.
out in my brain.
Yeah, I remember all those companies that had a robust catalog business when the internet became, really popular, and they spent millions of dollars to build out their
Hmm.
websites, and then they decided like, oh, well, now we don't have to mail catalogs anymore. And they stopped
Yeah.
mailing their catalogs, and several of them almost put themselves out of business by not mailing
Hmm.
their catalog
I mean,
anymore.
whatever
I
happened to
think
LLP, and
Nordstrom's,
are they still around, or
I think
wasn't
so. Yeah, I
that?
think they're still around.
Yeah,
But
I don't
yeah, there's
know.
some that have definitely taken a hit. But it's
Yeah.
funny now, the clothing brands, they tend to start with like one or two like really signature items, right? Like they're like a lot of like maybe I'm basing this off of men's clothing.
Hmm.
They start with like, hey, we've got the best t-shirts ever, and then they start,
Yeah.
selling t-shirts, and then all of a sudden they add polos and they add
Yeah.
all these other things to their line, but they definitely start as one sort of
Yeah.
better than all the rest idea. It has to
Yeah.
be like superior,
Like
re-engineered.
Untucked, that one. Yeah, it was
Exactly.
it the
Oh, I
Untucked
love
shirt.
Untucked.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
husband loves those. And
I wear them
they
a
opened a
lot.
store in Manhattan here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I We go to the retail store that's in Scottsdale, Arizona. They have a nice retail store there too, which is nice. You can try things on. But
Yeah. Hey, it's the opposite now. A lot of and that's kind of going to bring this full circle to the whole brand,
hmm.
you know, your initial question. The whole brand performance piece is a
Hmm.
lot of those digital first brands
Hmm.
only focused on like ROAS and bottom of the
Mm-hmm.
funnel marketing and
Mm-hmm.
got themselves in a lot of trouble. And a lot of them realized they needed to open stores and build like a Warby Parker, they needed to open
Mm-hmm.
stores and build more of a brand experience
Mm-hmm.
in order to win some affection for customers beyond just like straight bottom funnel marketing. You can definitely run your brand to the ground that way.
Yeah, well, I did a ton of marketing for over 10 years for AT&T,
Hmm.
selling wireless phones. And we also found there was a big group of people that we targeted for direct response and who would call in to the call centers
Hmm.
and purchase over the phone. And then we realized that so we created predictive models and, targeting that would identify the people that would respond. And then we started looking at the group that wasn't our responder group and the other group, and we found out that they were going to retail. They were the retail shoppers. They needed to go in to a store and see and touch and talk to someone in person before they purchased. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, the non direct response targeted group became the retail targeted group, and we built a whole drive to retail program that performed incredibly well, all driven with direct mail from, for AT&T. So
Hmm.
it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Um, how do you approach developing marketing strategies for niche markets such as the off-roading community with OK four-wheel drive?
Yeah, great question. So again, it starts with the data and knowing your audience and knowing who the beauty of the overlanding community is it's big, but it's niche. It's tight knit. Part of my
Mm-hmm.
challenge at OK Four-Wheel Drive too is the high end overlanders love us. They know our brand. We're
Mm-hmm.
the exclusive retailer for a brand called Alucab, who are based out of South Africa. They make the mod cap tents and the
Mm-hmm.
campers and all of those
Yeah.
things, and we're the only ones, I mean, us and our dealers that sell them in the United States. And
Mm.
in that world, South Africa, Australia are really the leaders in
Mm.
in the overlanding space. So
Mm-hmm.
having that level of exclusivity gives us an advantage with that customer. But we also have, off-roading, we have winch kits, we have bumpers and lift kits and all sorts of things for
Mm-hmm.
your truck and your vehicle. And
Mm-hmm.
what we hadn't done historically, they hadn't done a very good job at was broadening that audience. So that was kind of what I was brought in to do. And
Mm-hmm.
we've tried, we've kind of consolidated everything to really some marketing themes and some product focus. We've started doing brand video again, and
Mm-hmm.
we've built wider audiences for that video. Last month we did a promotion around truck caps, or they're called, some people call them canopies, some people call them truck caps. You have a
Sure.
Tacoma, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was the Alucab cap, and it is made a lot better than, it's got made out of better materials than like a lot of your standard ones that are sold here in the US. So it was really
Mm-hmm.
making this consumer aware of it. But we targeted the Gladiator groups and the Tacoma groups and all the different truck enthusiasts on Meta and on
Mm-hmm.
Google and folks that have searched for it. And I will say it's a very, very successful campaign. We sold a lot of truck caps, a lot
That's
more
great.
than the same time frame last year. So it's really kind of opening the aperture of who do you have and
Mm-hmm.
don't alienate them, and who do you want to have and how do you reach them? And
Yeah.
that's the combination of how I'm looking at things for OK. And we've got a small team, but they didn't hire me to be the overlanding enthusiast. They hired me to be the strategic marketer. We have, a team of really, really enthusiastic folks that are very, very passionate about the subject. And,
Yeah.
and we also work with the right there's like influencers in the space. Yes, there are
Yeah.
overlapping influencers and we use,
Oh, I know. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
There's
Very,
influencers for everything.
very famous people on YouTube that just
Yeah.
do installations
Yeah.
of equipment on their
Yep.
trucks, and I totally have watched
Exactly.
those videos. I hate to admit it, but
Oh yeah.
I'm in the
No.
target audience for sure.
Yeah, we are definitely gonna have to hook you up, Rick.
I know. Now I got to go to the website and see what I can
Yeah.
find. But well, we're running short on time, but I do at some point, maybe offline, I want to tell you a little bit about what we've been able to do with predictive modeling and predictive targeting, sort of
Right.
looking for lookalike customers, because I think that it would be an interesting uh, way
That's
to reach
yeah. Hmm.
other people that are highly likely to be into overlanding, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
um, let's see. What advice would you give to aspiring marketers who are looking to make a significant impact in their career?
Yeah. It's a great question. I'd say be genuine,
Okay.
be very genuine about your personal brand, who
Mm-hmm.
you are, what you bring to the table. Don't pigeonhole yourself young,
Mm-hmm.
try different things,
Mm-hmm.
and this is coming from someone who stayed at the same company. But I was in a very unique situation because we had seven different brands. And then I worked with, the likes of Nike and Adidas and Puma, so between all the footwear brands and all the different retail chains that I worked on, I do feel like I worked at 10 different companies, but I
Mm-hmm.
would, so it's
You got a
not,
lot of variety in your career and
I
a
got a
lot
lot
of
of variety in my career, even though I was at the same company. That's if you're
mm-hmm.
working on like a singular linear brand, that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to be true. So I would say while you're young, try different things, see what you like, because you will like the further you get in. And that's what's been nice about consulting now is as a consultant, like I don't know if I could go be, a VP of marketing or a CMO at an automotive company like 2 years ago, right after
Mm-hmm.
Foot Locker. I think when
Mm-hmm.
you are when you are that senior, there's like the phone calls I get are retail and
Mm-hmm.
consumer good like apparel, footwear, that sort
Sure.
of thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's good to have a variety of industries under your belt. Um,
Yeah. Oh,
if
I love the variety that I get to work on
yeah,
here at
depending
RPM.
on where you wanna, depending on what
Yeah.
seat you ultimately want to sit in. And it's okay to
Mm-hmm.
not want to be a CMO. It's okay to,
Yeah.
it all really depends on your path. And you're not necessarily going to know that when you're 23. So I would
Mm-hmm.
say just try different
Try.
things. I
Yeah.
think agencies are great. To your point, agencies are great starting grounds too, because you get to work on a lot of different clients and figure
Mm.
what industries you might like
Yeah.
for the next move
It,
too.
it's good to have the experience from both sides of
Hmm.
the business. I think for
Yeah.
sure. Well, that's super helpful advice for everyone who's up and coming. Well, this has been really great, and I'm afraid we're out of time. I feel like I
All
could continue
good.
talking to you for another hour, and we probably
I
would still
know.
have
Well,
more to talk about.
I'm always
There's so
happy to come
much
back, Rick.
so much to unpack that I may have to invite you back for an episode
Okay.
two. Uh, if people want to get a hold of you, how can they reach you?
Sure. LinkedIn, Francine Feder.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Feel
you
free to
again,
message
and
me.
have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
That's a wrap for this episode of Response Drivers. Thanks for tuning in. If you found today's insights valuable, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, we'd love it if you left a review. Got a question or a topic you'd like us to cover? Just drop us a message at responsedrivers@rpmdm.com. Until next time, keep driving response and making your marketing work smarter.